Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time after your long weekend. I hope everybody had some rest and spent some time with family. We did that as a family and actually powered down this weekend at the advice of my board chair. And I took advantage of that and just spent some good quality time with family. So I hope you did the same and feel a little bit rested and renewed. Thank you for taking the time to come this evening, and just after your long day, we wanted to have the opportunity, or I did, to share a couple things with you about the special election that the board decided to go out and do on September the 8th. They decided on March the 12th, but let me tell you the three purposes of us meeting this evening. So the first purpose is just for me to show where you can find good information about the sales tax and empower you to tell your school story. So each of you came up with an organizing to lead team, and you developed your own stories about your school site. It's really important that you understand your school story when it comes to your capital needs. So that's the first purpose. The second is really to demonstrate how great our needs are. And I think we've had several principals, 12 of you, I believe, up to this point, who have come and shared your school stories about the significant capital needs that you have at your school. And then also to include some potential and significant budget cuts on our horizon for the next school year. Some of you may have already heard about the budget cuts. You've been a part of the budget presentations that have been presented to the school board. But tonight I'm going to go over those potential budget reduction strategies with you, so you can have the opportunity to ask some questions about those too, because ultimately you are the boots on the ground, and you represent the story of the school district, but also for your individual schools. And it's really important that you have the opportunity to answer and explain when you're asked questions to your community, your students, your teachers, your faculty, and educate them about what this is all about. The third thing is just really, the third purpose of tonight's meeting is really just to give you an opportunity, again, to answer any questions. All right. So, number one, what can you do? Everybody has been asking me, well, what can I do? I'm getting emails every day, which fantastic, from staff members saying, here's some ideas. Here are some potential budget reduction strategies. Here's some things to think about. So what can you do? So number one is vote. Vote on September the 8th. Let other people know about the upcoming special election. Answer questions with certainty and good information. Educate. Address people's concerns when they have them. Effectively engage your school and community stakeholders about the needs and about the severity of our budget situation. How many of you right now could stand up and define and describe and communicate about the severity of our district's budget situation? Could anybody do that? So tonight, I want you to take the opportunity to answer questions so you feel much more comfortable about doing that. And then when you have the questions that come to you that you can't answer, I want you to call or email and ask so we can give you good information, because that's what this is all about. It's helping people to understand our district story, where we're at, what our budget issues are, which are significant, and what our capital needs are. So number two, not only do we need your help, do we need for you to get out and vote, but we also need for you to understand who we are as a school district and who you are as a school site. So number one, how many employees do we employ in the school district? Can anybody tell me? Media can tell me. We employ over 3,300 employees in the school district. That's at all different layers of our organizations. How many students do we have? Over 20,000, almost 22,000, right? It varies a little bit depending on what survey period that we're in. You see those students every day. Well, if we mobilize our staff and we educate them and provide good information, and we have over 22,000 students, that's a lot of good information flowing. Those are a lot of potential votes. So my message to you in saying all of that is engage the people that you serve. Engage the people that you serve with good information. Is there urgency around this? Why? 104 days remain. That's nothing. How many weeks? 15 weeks. Those of us who have been involved with the project, we are counting down again to get to that finish line. So 104 days. The scary part for us is how many days left of school. And I know you all know this because you're looking forward to summer. 7 more days of school? 6 after today? Very, very important that we get good information out very quickly. So there's a lot of urgency around this. So we need to do what we can in terms of educating now before school gets out. And then we need to hit the ground running in August when we get back and do everything we can to get information out. How many of you have seen this? I'll hold one up. Do you have them? We brought them tonight? Okay, fantastic. Okay, let me spend a little bit of time going over this very briefly. So in your brochure, you've got background information, some fast facts, some financial facts. You've got lists of facility projects by school. Is that rain? Yes. Oh my goodness. And then you've got the potential budget cuts. High schools, we've ordered these brochures so that they can be passed out at graduations. You should receive these on the pony early this week to pass out. More of these brochures are going to be coming to schools so that they can be handed out in pickup lines and in open houses when school resumes in August. This brochure contains very basic information, but it's really important that you take some time to read through all of this. Think about questions that you have. Ask those questions to us. And then we will get answers for you for things that you don't know. If you need additional detail, we've got that as well. Because a lot of times people will say, well, you know, what is the HVAC system and flooring at this school? What does that mean? Well, all of that gets outlined in our capital improvement plan. And we can provide as much detail as people need. But we want to continue to keep that information flowing. All right. I'm going to try and talk over the rain. So as I mentioned to you before, we've had school principals, those of you that are in the audience that have presented your story and your facility needs. I thank you for that. You've done an outstanding job. If you haven't had a chance to see those are all presented during citizen input at school board meetings. Take the time to watch those. They're very compelling. My point in telling you all this is, as assistant principals and as principals, know your story. One of the things that we learned from Brevard County, who had a very successful campaign, sales tax campaign, is they made it very personal for people. So they knew, the people that attended that school, parents, community members, they knew specifically how it was going to impact their school building. That's what they believe helped to pass their sales tax. So, again, nothing in the way of data, information, facts, figures, and you know how much I love hard data, right? I ask you about it all the time. Nothing in the way of any of that does anything compared to you telling the personal story of your school site. So let's talk for just a minute about the statement that people say, well, I already pay too much in the way of taxes. Do you hear that? I hear that all the time from people. Well, we pay a lot in taxes. Well, when you look at this tells us right here that 65% of our budget we rely on state and federal funds for. The district that I came from prior to coming to Hernando County, which was Martin County, was just the opposite. They relied on about 35 or 31% of their funding because their property taxes and their taxes made up the amount that they needed to be able to provide a good quality education in their community. So when people ask you that question, provide them with good information. Let them know that there's nothing that we can do personally about changing Florida's educational finance program or funding formula. There's nothing that we can do to change that. So if you're asked the question, well, just go to Tallahassee and get your legislators to make that change. There's nothing we can do. We are bound by that, by 65% of our budget, which is a little scary when you think about relying on the state and federal government to fund education in your locality. Okay, some of the things that we can do locally, we can levy impact fees. You've heard about that in the community. Impact fees are fees that are charged on new construction or new building. Our county commission has decided not to do that. We've been on a moratorium, I think, since 2011. We can also ask for a discretionary property tax millage and a local sales tax. Those are the things within our control to be able to do as a community or as a county. All right, let's talk about the fast facts real quick. And many of you have lived through these very difficult times. As administrators, you've seen the cuts in your school buildings, district staff, you've seen your budgets at the district decrease. The school district's total balance of all funds has decreased more than $84 million since 2008. That's significant when you think about the district needs more than $87 million right now to repair schools, including critical roof, air conditioner, and fire alarm replacement projects. You see this every day at your school sites. One of the things a lot of people don't realize is they say, well, how did the school district get so far in debt? Have you not spent your money well? How many times have you heard that? You've just spent frivolously on programs and people, and it's government waste. I hear it all the time. The comeback to that is, okay, and it's providing good factual information. Our county was growing right before the recession. You remember, we were growing. We overbuilt is what we did. Our growth stopped. Our growth has actually decreased just a little bit, and we're flat. We're not projected to grow 5 more years, just a little bit, not much. The problem is we incurred a lot of debt from when we built those new school buildings, $100 million plus in debt. So what happens is we have to take the money that we would use to provide capital, okay, use it to provide operating just so we can operate. All right? That money goes to pay the debt that we incurred to build those new school buildings. So that's the story. That's the fact. That's why we're so in debt. It's not because we have government waste. It's not because we've overspent and we're frivolous. How can that possibly be when we've decreased our total balance? The other thing that people don't realize is the state used to give capital funding. Where has all that funding gone? It's gone to provide capital funds for charter schools. This year alone, charter schools got the majority of money, $95 million. I think school districts across 67 school districts had to divide up $55 million. It's a drop in the bucket. It's not even $500,000 when our capital needs are $87 million. So PICO funds public education capital outlay. We aren't getting many dollars anymore. We don't have much of that funding. So what has happened is just to maintain operating expenses, which we call general fund balance dollars, we've had to pull from our fund balance, which is our savings account, just to be able to operate. Well, what happens? You know this from your own personal finances. What happens when you continually pull from your savings account? You deplete it. So after a while, you can't take from the savings account anymore, right? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about potential budget cuts. These are very, very scary things for us. We sit and we look at this list and we pray and we hope that this is not going to happen. But hope is not a strategy. We have to be real. The board that is now in place, we have an awesome school board, but they're going to have to make really, really hard decisions. What does that mean? It means some of these things right here. Unpaid furlough days for staff. Reducing student contact positions. The elimination of courtesy busing. The elimination of magnet school busing. Reduction of paid holidays. The potential reduction of supplements. The elimination of middle school and high school sports. The elimination of art programs. Optional considerations. The closing of schools. We realize that some of these items are collective bargaining items, but these are all real and potential budget reduction strategies that we've got to come up with. Our budget shortfall this year is $12 million approximately. We've also looked at some potential cost savings, but as our staff at the district talk about, it's really a drop in the bucket when you consider the overall budget needs. Got my finance people here and they see it every day. They live in it, as you do with your own budgets. Some potential cost savings: outsourcing custodial services, outsourcing safety and security services, school blackouts 2 to 3 nights per week, activity fees, pay-to-play fees. So I know you probably have lots of questions or things that are you're mulling over in your mind. What I want to do right now is turn the microphone over to Mr. Sean Arnold. He's our Director of Maintenance and Facilities. He's going to give you a sense for what our facility needs are. And I'm hopeful they'll turn this microphone off so he can. And then we'll be back to answer questions.
Okay, so most of you I've dealt with at the schools. You guys give me a call almost every single day. Is this working? It's okay? All right. So it's, you guys deal with me every day. You call me, you ask for I need this at my school, I need that at my school. And every day I'm dealing with this crisis, basically, is what we have, is when the schools, or when the budget has to be taken from the operating, it affects the capital. The capital is what I use at the schools in order to make sure that you guys are getting what you need at the school to properly function on a daily basis. That could be lighting, air conditioning systems, roofing for, you don't have any leaks. So there's a lot of things. Back in 2009, I took over as director of the maintenance department, and that was considered a pretty good year in retrospect, where we had probably, just in roofing alone, $2 million. In the preceding years, we've had a step down in budget, and it's going the wrong direction. It's going down. I've had years where I've had zero roofing money, and up until this year, I've had $100,000 pretty much over the past 5 years to maintain all 23 schools for roofing. And that's just one. In all of our categories, our paint category has gone to zero. We have 3 painters for an entire district of over 4.5 million square feet. So this is a compounding issue that we have if we don't get proper funding. We have deferred maintenance at the schools. And all of the schools have a significant amount of deferred maintenance. And basically what deferred maintenance is that if we can't repair something this year and get enough money to repair it, a couple of years down the road, we're going to be spending 4 times that amount. And every year that we don't get the money to repair something is compounding to the next year and to the next year. And that's how we get that $87 million worth of deferred maintenance. So if we were to get, say, $100 million, that would take care of our deferred maintenance. But really, we have $700 million in school assets. So our school buildings are worth approximately $700 million. So on average, an industrial average is saying across the nation is that we should be putting 3% of our budget, our capital budget, and all of our monies towards maintaining the schools. So that's approximately $21 million per year to maintain all of our schools and all of our assets. If we reduce that because of the economical times to 1%, that's still $7 million per year to maintain our schools. And that's to maintain the schools. That's not to work on deferred maintenance. That's to maintain them and to keep them to a level to where we can have a normal operation. That's where we're consistently doing a cost cycle to where something comes up to 20 years. Your roofing, your HVAC, they have about a 20-year life cycle. So prior to that, we should be putting money in and preparing to replace those systems before they get to the point where they're costing us too much money. One of the things is that with our HVAC systems, we have schools that are operating on 23 to 25-year-old HVAC systems. And 20 years, again, is the life cycle of an HVAC system. Beyond that point, if a normal year, I'm just going to throw a number out there, would cost $50,000 to operate a mechanical system, well, because it's 5 years past its life cycle, it could cost double that. So really, it's a compounding problem. We always are going to have this issue unless we get a large influx of money on an annual basis that we can consistently work at these schools and bring them up to where they need to be. And as Eric is putting up some of the schools, there's just Springstead High School is $9.7 million alone. So again, with the half-cent sales tax money and bringing in about $8.4 million, it's still not enough to take care of one school. So we are definitely in a crisis, and really this is something that I think we can get a good handle on if we had the money coming in on a consistent basis. We wouldn't have these significant numbers up on the screen. We would be able to take care of things. But as systems fail and we replace them, we're always going to have other systems that are going to be failing. So this is something that is cyclical. It's always going to happen. But the problem that we need to stop is this deferred maintenance. We really need to catch up on the deferred maintenance with bringing in this large influx of money. In order to do it on an annual basis is to make sure that our deferred maintenance is not growing to an unreachable rate. And that's about it.
We'll take some questions if you have questions about what you've read or heard.
Eric, can you turn me back on? Thank you. Yep. Okay. One of the things I wanted to point out, but before we take questions, is you see this chart up here, and this has all of our school sites on it, and it's got all of the capital needs that are outlined in the capital improvement plan. What the plan is to make postcard size marketing material or educational material so that you will have those for your school site so that it becomes very tailored to your story. Okay, I wanted to kind of point that out so that you would know what that was there for. And you're seeing some of those up on the screen that they pulled off of there. Okay, at this point we will take questions and we will try to provide good answers. Those questions that we don't have answers for, we will take back and we will find answers for you.
I'm just going to start picking people then. You can't hardly hear them. I'm just going to start picking people. No.
One of the hardest things that I've had to do is stand before you and to stand before our community. I was at the Economic Development Summit last week at Silverthorne and talk about, it's not something a superintendent or principal or a director wants to do, is to stand up and talk about how desperate our times are. We are in really, really hard times. And when we have to say no, and it directly impacts you and impacts your teachers and impacts children, that's horrible on a community. When you have to talk about closing schools, those are not fun things to have to do. It's very, very painful. But I think together, we're going to come together as a school family, and we're going to drive this as best that we can together so that we can have a very successful outcome for our kids. Okay? Yes?
Good evening, Dr. Romano. Vince Laboranti, teacher at West Hernando Middle School. At the board meeting that I attended last week, I heard a variety of principals basically documenting the situations and the problems, air conditioning, mold, water leakage, so forth and so on, at a variety of the schools. Now, I was just wondering, has any of the school sites kind of like done a feasibility study dealing with these problems that they're having at their sites, absenteeism of students due to allergies, asthma, and even faculty as a result of the problems that these individual schools are having, which is basically the bottom line, losing very good quality instructional time. Because as we know, as much as we love our substitutes, all right, nothing replaces that instruction that can be delivered by a teacher or empty seats in a classroom because students are home at doctors.
Yep, it's a great question, and Sean can answer any feasibility studies, but one of the things that we do before we make any type of major repairs, for instance, West Side last year, we did a Gastaldi study. That's a study that the Department of Education comes in and they do, and they tell us what the feasibility is basically on whether or not we should do that, what's the supposed time frame for doing that, what's the potential cost, whether or not you really should invest the money to do that. And that's a pretty low-cost study to do because it's through the Department of Education, so there's a better rate for us to do that. So those things do get done before major projects. We also have a routine type of study that is done by Eric Van der Beauregard. I'm not saying it correctly, but that he has taken on with his team to go and review every single facility. I think he's made it to 3 or 4 this year, but they're very involved studies, not specifically related to attendance or asthma issues of teachers or staff, but looking at every single facility to find out, number one, what the issues are, but number two, what is the best method for going about repairing or maintaining those facilities. Very involved and very intense. Thank you for your question.
This question may be just my lack of knowledge about budgets, but you mentioned about that when the district you came from, that it was a flip-flop, that your state, how will that affect it? Like if we start getting more local, does that mean state decreases?
Yes. I think it's me. I think I'm too close to the...
Okay, and I
so let me answer your question first. The district where I came from, they have property values that were very, very high. So it included this section of Jupiter Island, if you will, very wealthy, multi-million-dollar homes. So when you think about the taxes that are generated and the percentage that they're able to use, and I don't have the slide up anymore, but you have it in your brochure, that's why. So the more that you generate locally, now sales tax is a little bit different because it's very specific. Those are capital dollars that can be used on a very specific set of items, and we have to outline those in a resolution. In fact, the resolution was passed today by the Board of County Commissioners. So all of that has to be outlined so the voters know very specifically what they're voting for. The other thing for our sales tax is we had a sales tax. Many of you probably remember that. That sales tax sunsetted in January. Actually, it was December, and January is when we would have gotten those new funds if the sales tax had passed in November. But it really is bring it back. It's bring back our sales tax for our capital needs.
And just another question, because I've had this asked of me. When we start looking at all these, you're saying about making that postcard, and we start putting out there how many millions and millions we need, and then this is 8.2. It's kind of like, well,
a drop in the bucket. It is. And it's interesting because people think, well, if we get the sales tax, we're going to take care of all of our capital needs. No, because there's hundreds of millions of dollars in capital needs, but it will be significant. It will help significantly to take care of the significant needs that we have, roofing and HVAC in particular, because West Side, I'm looking for Christina, thank you, and Gina, you all know that when that roof fell in on technology. I mean, it became so wet that it just came down. That starts impacting teachers and kids and technology and instructional materials and so on and so forth. So,
Anyone else? Mr. Lodato? It's a long way.
you have a question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Hernando, could you explain to everyone here today what ramifications we will be feeling when budget time comes, and if something happens that we do not receive this half-cent sales tax, how devastating will that be to the school system?
Yeah, it will be extremely devastating. Right now, we're anticipating approximately a $12 million shortfall just for next year. When you budget, you have to budget as if you are not going to receive that funding. And even if we do receive that funding, we're still short dollars because we've been now almost a year without it. So when you talk about the budget shortfall, it is significant. When you talk about not having music and art for children, I mean, I'm looking at Morgan right now, and she's getting ready to play with her team in Carnegie Hall, correct? I mean, those are the kind of things that we want to provide a quality education that our children, my own child included, deserve. We don't want to take away sports. That's what makes Hernando High School. That's what makes high school, right? Central. We don't want to have schools without football. Think about the narrative principals and executive leaders. Think about the story that we created as a part of Organizing to Lead. We want our children and our families and our community to walk across those football fields with pride that they're from Hernando County. And we have the capability in people to provide a quality education, but we can't do it without the resources, the financial resources that we need. So to answer your question, it's devastating.
Well, let me ask you one more question. We were at an economic conference just this last week, and the emphasis was on economic development. We've had major corporations who have looked at us and have vetted us and found that we are not up to where we should be. We had a large corporation come here 2 years ago. One was called Amazon. And when they came into the area, they looked at us and said, how are your schools? And I said to them, well, the schools are, they're in good shape, but we have a lot of problems. We have a high debt problem. And he said to me, no, you don't. You have 2 F-rated schools, you have 2 D-rated schools, and I can go down the line and tell you what we have. So what kind of a community have we come to? What have we come to as a community? That we don't want to get together and do what needs to be done to bring our schools back to the condition that they should be. And so if you could explain that and maybe explain the PAC and let people know what we're going to be doing.
Yep, absolutely. So let me address the first item first. I often say to you, as leaders in this school district, that my goal is what? What is my goal for this school district? And what is our collective goal? What do we deserve to be? An A-rated school district of? That's right. We will become that. It deserves that. When I have people contact me, and they call all the time, about wanting to come to Hernando County. They're looking for homes here and they want to come to our school. That's the first thing that they look for when they come to a community. You did it if you moved here from another place. I did it. The first thing that you do is you start looking at what are the educational options for children, and that's what companies do. And in order for our community to be strengthened, we have to have good economic development. We have to have places for our children to graduate, get educated, and then work. We want our children to stay here, but they're not going to stay here unless we can do 2 things: strengthen our schools and become an A-rated school district of excellence, and to bring businesses here. Second thing you had mentioned is when a board decides to go out for a special election, the community oftentimes forms a political or an action committee. Mr. Lodato is from the community, and Mr. John Mitten. Many of you know John Mitten from Chick-fil-A. They have stepped up and they are leading the Political Action Committee. It's called Saving Our Students, or SOS. So you will see a lot of information come out from that committee. That committee is really important because they can do something that we can't. They can advocate. They can tell people, vote yes. We can't do that. We can educate as educators. That's our role and responsibility, is helping our community to understand and educate them about what this means to our schools and telling our story. Okay, so that Political Action Committee, they're meeting every single week. They're meeting at the Chamber of Commerce for 1 hour on Wednesdays. And we have two representatives that will serve on that committee, Mr. Eric Williams and Mr. Sean Arnold. And they will bring information back to us so we can mobilize ourselves as a school family and decide how to best educate our people. So we thank Jimmy and John for stepping up and leading that very important work. Lots of marketing and communication materials will come out, Facebook, lots of social media, so on and so forth. Yes, thank you. And I'd have my red shirt on today. I had the wrong size, and they've given me one now for my husband and my child and myself, so we can wear those on weekends. But our Hernando County Teachers Association has been wonderful in stepping up and being a part of the solution, and they have developed a shirt called Support Public Education, and they've got those back there. And thank you for being a great partner in this work. We're going to make this happen. We're going to make this happen for our kids and our teachers. Yes?
My name is Susan Fribble. I'm a teacher at West Hernando. I'm always really confused by budgets, and I know that the state hasn't set a budget yet. And every day we turn around, we're not sure what our allocations are exactly. So my question, and this is probably a worst case scenario, are we going to assume that it's not passing? And so are you going to get rid of music, guidance, and everything now so that next year and then bring it back? Because that's horrible to me, but I think that's something I came here wanting to know if that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, we all know that those things are in danger, but are they actually in danger right now?
Yes, they are. So let me answer the first part of your question. The legislators are going back on June the 1st to determine what the budget will be for this coming year. What we are hearing is that we will budget based on what we received this year with no additional funding. Okay? We'll budget based on what we received this year from the state. So nothing. We will also budget without the sales tax because you have to. You can't budget as if you were going to get it and then hope. Remember what I said? And I believe in hope. Without hope, we are nothing, but it's not a strategy that you can run a business on. You can't. So we will budget without it, and our school board will be presented with information. We started that process at the last board meeting with giving them information. They will receive much more detailed information about those potential budget reduction strategies. They will continue to have conversations and research, look at other solutions that they will come up with, that the community is coming up with. We will review and overturn every possible rock that we can, but decisions are going to have to be made by our board. So yes, it does impact next year, unfortunately. Yes?
As a follow-up to that,
That's good.
As a follow-up to that, what is, I think a lot of staff from the school's perspective is a timeline per se. Is it the next board meeting that they will go through all of those items and make some decisions, or what is kind of like the timeline to know for sure those cuts and those decisions?
There was a timeline that was presented to the board as a part of the last board meeting. So if staff ask you that, go and pull that, or we can send it back out to everybody so you can see step by step what is going to happen at every single board meeting going forward. The board has to approve a final budget. They have their final budget hearing at the end of September. So the vote is September the 8th, and they have their final budget, approved, balanced budget on September the 23rd, I believe it is. Don't quote me. It's the last board meeting in September. So when staff ask you, that would be the timeline that you could give them in black and white. People have asked questions too about what does it mean for positions, because you're going through the allocation process right now based on student enrollment.
Took my question.
You get it. Is that your question?
One of them.
Okay. You get into collective bargaining issues. Joanne and I have talked about that, and you talk about the reduced allocations that you have to do and put into place. So all of that gets outlined as a reduction in force that's in the contract, and we don't want to have to do that. That's painful, and we don't want to lose our teachers, but reduction in force at times is sometimes necessary for these times that we're in.
And so my question is, the 185 teachers mentioned on the brochure, is that those non-contact student?
Yes.
Yes. That comes to?
Yes. And when we say non-student contact positions, you know who those teachers are, those instructional positions that don't have students directly assigned to them. So your media specialists, your guidance counselors, your assessment teacher, I mean, those are just some of them, but there's a whole list.
And this question would be towards Sean. In the closing of a school, which again, you don't mention on the brochure, but you had in the PowerPoint. So I didn't know how, where that ranks as far as a possibility. Probably not, since it's not on here.
It does rank as a possibility. It's been a part of our conversations with the school board.
Okay.
It will be a last resort option, but it is an option that we have to consider, because we've got buildings that are underutilized, so we can't continue to run buildings that are underutilized and keep buildings that are over capacity. You can't. It's from a financial perspective, we don't have the money to continue to do that.
So that's a question I had already. What do we save in closing a school? We know that kids got to go somewhere. The teachers go with them, so none of that's lost. But what are we saving that much with AC and maintenance?
Yeah. On average, what we've learned from studying schools that have closed, and then potentially the schools that we close, is right around $1.2 million on average. So it's not like $9 million or $12 million. That's why you've got to consider all of those options.
Okay, on your proposed budget cuts, it says reduce 185 teachers. I don't see anything on here where it says you're going to reduce the number of administrators, not counting principals and vice principals. If you got rid of 180, you reduced 185 administrators, you could keep the bottom four things on your proposed budget cuts.
Okay. So let me answer the first part of your question. So the positions that you see on there are considered non-student facing positions. So when you talk about teachers that teach in classrooms, core classrooms, those are positions that will continue, that have students attached to them. We call those teachers of record in the education world. The second thing is, we already have cut administrative positions. We already have done that, and we'll continue to do that. Okay?
The two other ways you mentioned we could impact is the millage rates and the impact fees. Is there any discussion with the County Commission on those two items?
Yes. The impact fees, we've continued. Many of you principals have sat with me at the Board of County Commission. You've watched me go and present to them 3 times. Their last meeting that they had to discuss impact fees, they decided to wait until next March, correct? To revisit that, and if they do, it will go back to the 2011 rate. So you're talking that whole feasibility study that was done that increased the rate to over $7,000 per new home build. All of that is out the window at this point, and that's what we know to be true right now. Is it will be revisited in March of next year, and if they do make a decision to go forward, it will be at the $4,000 2011 rate. The board historically has talked about increasing the millage rate, And they have not wanted to do that, but we have a new board, and I think that's something that, I don't want to speak for them, but I think it's something that they will want to discuss going forward.
What exactly are we allowed to say? What exactly are we allowed to say? I know we can't say vote yes.
You cannot say vote yes. You cannot advocate. You can just educate. And so that's a very gray line, isn't it? Okay, so do a lot of listening. Talk about your story and what you do know. You just cannot tell people to vote yes. You can say go vote, but you cannot tell them how to vote and twist their arm and take them to the voting line. You know, you can't.
Jill Renahan, I have a question. So if the vote passes, when will we begin to see income as a result of the sales tax?
The money will flow in January of the upcoming year, so 2016. January of 2016. So if the school board had decided to wait to go and do a special election in March as a part of the presidential primary or as a part of the general election, the money would not have flowed to us until January of 2017. So people often question the board about, well, why did you go out in September? Well, they know how desperately the school district needs the funding, and the money will flow in January of 2016. Begin flowing.
When it passes, is there so many years that it's going to run, or does it have to be renewed every year or whatnot?
It's a 10-year. It's a 10-year ask, so it's a 10-year sales tax. Good question. And that was a decision that the board had made. And our sales tax that we did have that sunsetted, it was a 10-year also.
Can I ask you one?
Absolutely. This is Mr. Palmieri, who attends our school board meetings. Thank you for coming tonight.
It's a pleasure. Dr. Romano, you said that the district is short some $12 million for next year's budget. Is that correct?
Yes, approximately.
Well, if that's the case, I'm looking at this potential budget cut. This adds up to over 15 million. Mm-hmm. Why do you want to cut 15 million to offset 12 million?
We don't. Those are just potential. Those are just potential cuts. The board and the superintendent, we have to provide a balanced budget. We're required to do that. So in order to do that, we know that we have to provide options and go through every single one of those options as a board and a superintendent and make the best possible decisions that we have to make for the school district. And so in doing that, we know that we have to come up with approximately $12 million for next year in order to provide a balanced budget. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Some of the items that you have on your potential or your options include things like sports and music programs. Are any of those expected to be cut before September? Or is that something that the school board has to vote on, and we won't know until the end of September?
Yes, the school board will have to vote on those. They've already begun those discussions. So they will make decisions about that before September the 8th.
So we won't know when will we know whether people are losing their jobs as PE teachers or music directors?
You will know probably sometime in July. You will know in June or July, I would imagine. Yep. I'm sorry? Yes. You want me to turn off? So you, okay.
I wanted to come and speak to each one of you tonight because I'm extremely worried about what's going to happen. You've had a lot of information thrown at you today, very serious information. These things are real, and it's going to be devastating. The fact that we lost that half cent caused more damage than you can ever imagine. If we were a patient in a hospital, we would be in intensive care. If we were a corporation and I was your CEO, I would ask you today to file Chapter 13. This is the condition that we're in. This is why the community has come together and formed a pact to reverse the situation that we're facing. We are part of that pact. We are people who are community leaders who are coming forward to make this happen. This half-cent sales tax, this is a restore tax. This is not an additional tax. People are going to say to you, oh my God, we can't afford any more money. Well, let me ask you a question. You haven't had a half cent since January. Has it affected your life any? Has anyone felt the pain, or have they had some great amount of monies that are thrown at them because they saved that half cent? No, I can't find anybody who would. The weirdest thing is, when I ask people, if this were a half cent referendum and a half cent for the county back in November, what would you have passed? Overwhelmingly, they said they would have voted for the half cent for our schools. There are people in this community who want more for our children. I am standing here before you because I believe in you. You are our principals. You are the people who make things happen. You are, in my estimation, the heroes, the true heroes, because you are the ones who influence our children. I'm standing here in front of you because of this. Teachers came before you and made a difference in my life. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm trying to make this difference. We have a campaign that will actually, it will stagger you on what is going to be coming in the next few months. We said we have 100 days. We're already in position. But what we need is your help. We need every principal, every assistant principal, every teacher, every spouse, every friend, everyone you know. You must register. You must get them out there to register. You're sitting there with 22,000 students. Split that in half with 2 parents per student, we're talking about 10,000. Now think of all their cousins and relatives. You are a voting block of over 40,000 voters. You have more power. You are the largest employer in this county. The destiny of this county is in your hands. We're sitting here talking about negatives, but let's talk about the positives. We can influence what's going to happen in the years to come if we take a stand now and we pass this half cent sales initiative. It is necessary. It is something that must be. When people talk about exactly economic development, I was economic development. I was the CEO of major corporations. I'm the one who asked all those questions. What is wrong? Why can't we bring in corporations here? Because we're substandard and the community has not stepped up. But you have. You work with everybody every single day. You are helping our children. You are stopping the brain drain. Our kids are leaving the county and going elsewhere for jobs because we don't have jobs. So the community has to step forward and invest in you, invest in our children, invest in our structure so that we can move this community forward and quit talking out of both sides of our mouth. We say that our children are our future. Have we really stepped up? Have we really done what we're supposed to do? Are they really our future? When you have people saying, I don't want to pay a half cent. Geez, somebody paid a half cent for them, didn't they? So I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you, help us. The only way we can make this go forward is for you to help. You have a fantastic superintendent. You have a board who is now behind you, who wants to make these changes. You are dedicated professionals. Please, get out and get those votes. Talk to everyone you know. All the students that are graduating, get them registered. Get them out there to help you because they are your product. They are your product, and you should be proud of what you produce. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to be standing right in front of you tonight. And I'm going to do everything. I work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10:30 at night. You can ask Anthony Kovic up there, who's in charge of media. You want to find out what's going on? Go to SOS, Hernando. It's on the website. You'll know everything that's going on. What we talked about tonight will be on there tonight. And everyone will know what Dr. Hernando just said. Please, help her. Help your board. Help yourself. Help this community. Let's go out and fight and get what we have to get for our children. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions? Okay. I don't know what time it is because I'm not watching on the clock, but I imagine it's close to 6 o'clock. And we asked you for 1 hour. Want to be very cautious of your time because I know you need to get home to family. So thank you. Keep the communication flowing. Keep asking questions. We will keep providing you with information. And again, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here tonight. And have a great week going forward. Thank you.